All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Replace Your Income with Kevin and...
Steve.
Is that your name?
Steve, it is.
Okay, good. Steve, it is. Well, welcome, Steve. Good to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here today. Yeah. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Well, thanks for getting off your motorcycle and coming in and actually spending some time.
The sacrifices I make.
I know it's a lot. How about this for a segue? You know what else might be a lot is property values going up because of the recent interest rate drop.
No.
Was that a good transition?
That was great.
Okay.
It's actually pretty exciting, isn't it? The fact that, really that the Fed lowered the Fed rate by, 50 basis points.
Wait, why do you think they did that? I wonder if is there anything coming up that would make the Fed want to lower the interest rate?
No, I texted Jay Powell yesterday and just said, hey, would cool. you please?
Yeah.
And then he did.
Jerome Powell was like, I'm in a good mood today. I'm going to lower the interest rate. There's nothing politically that would motivate that, right? No, of course not. We don't want to show pretend like the economy is really good right before an election. We wouldn't want to do that. No, but it is really exciting. I saw this post on Instagram. Our friend Ryan Lee, and he had a picture of the same house, and it said 2021, and it was like the house was worth like $420,000, right? Same house. 2024, the house was worth like $360, or I don't know what it was. And the point that he was making is, so do you really think property values won't go up when interest rates go down?
On the same day that the Fed lowered the rate, mortgage originations jumped by 14%.
That's crazy.
Within hours of the announcement, 14%. We've been screaming this from the rooftops for a long time. That there's been an opportunity, and there's a huge opportunity right now to be moving forward. Anyways, it's the correlation. It just it really is. It's economics 101.
Yes.
And it's kind of fun to see, what we've been talking about, literally within hours of what we said was going to happen. It happened.
And again, guys, just as a reminder, we don't need to get in the weeds. I was starting to, but the reality is when the Fed cuts the interest rate, it will likely be reflected shortly thereafter in mortgage interest rates. Okay, that it's when the Fed cuts the rate, because I know a lot of people get confused and they think if the Fed cuts the rate, somehow that automatically lowers interest rates. They are separate entities acting according to market conditions. But what is a common, frankly, always the occurrence is when the Fed drops interest rates, the mortgage interest rates typically follow to a certain extent. And so if mortgage interest rates drop, the reason originations went up is now people are going, oh, wait a second, I can afford more house, or I can afford the same house for less money. And so all of that pent up demand.
The house that they were waiting to make an offer on.
Yeah.
Because they're like, as soon as it drops to this amount, we can afford the payment.
Yep.
That happened yesterday.
And so just a reminder, if interest rates go down and if the market heats up, what's going to happen is there is still a shortage of housing. But now if there's more people willing to buy, it's going to exacerbate the thing, and it's going to drive prices up because that is going to be a natural condition, right?
Yep. Pretty cool. But that's not what we really want to talk about today, right?
No, because that would almost indicate that someone could be successful in real estate, which we are big believers in. Today, however, we talk on this podcast all the time about all the cool stuff that happens in real estate. We talk about the cool stuff that's happened for us, that's happened for our clients. But what if we did a little story time today? What if we did a story time about some of the worst real estate investments that you and I've made, and share with the audience some of our failures? Napoleon Hill says that, something to the effect of, inside of every failure is embedded the seed of a future success. But failure does happen in real estate, especially when you do the wrong things like we've both done. And so let's have a story time. Let's talk about ways that we have failed in real estate.
I couldn't wait for this podcast just so that I could which
should
story,
be like a therapy
what
session.
Story should I choose from the many failures? And what's cool about this is every time we fail, we get to remember, right? And we get to remind not only ourselves, but our clients. Right. So the beautiful thing is that we get to learn from each other. And the more you try, the more failures you're going to have. But the more you try and the more failures you have, the more successes that you have. You really can't have one without the other for the most part. But
fail fast, fail often, right?
Yeah. but the nice thing, and I'll just make this real quick plug. The nice thing about working with, people who are experts, people who have been doing it for a long time, is you get to avoid many of those failures. It doesn't mean that, your experience is going to be, perfect, but
sure.
But you get to avoid a lot of these things. So the story I'll share, Kev, I thought about it for about, 0.5 seconds. And I had one come to mind. And, we talk a lot about game plans, right? Having a plan and executing the plan, stay on track, just do the plan.
Don't deviate from the plan.
And you'll win.
Yeah, right.
Well, so I've been doing this for a long time. I've been executing my real estate plan for, 18 years. And, I started out flipping homes. And so I wasn't hanging on to a lot of properties. And within a few years, I started hanging on to them as I realized that that's where real wealth was created. And so back in 2000, I think it was 2005-ish, I bought 3 fourplexes here in Utah. I took a commercial building that I had bought prior to that, and I'd owned it for a few years. And I decided to do a 1031 exchange into 3 fourplexes. So I bought these 3 fourplexes for $240,000 each. They're like in sequence, right? And all brick, just like
Utah fourplex in Utah County in 2005 for $240,000
each. Yep. Yeah. So pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And my plan was, it was like, these are going to be a big part of my retirement. And I had owned them, for about 10, 12 years. And I had something else come up where I needed to generate some cash in order to do this thing. And I deviated. I did one of, I so regret it. And I'll tell you why. I sold 2 of my fourplexes. And thankfully, I had enough, brain stem activity going on that I hung on to one of them.
Yeah.
But I deviated from my plan, sold 2 of them. I used the cash to go do something else that, of course, didn't work very well. And, kind of one of those things, like we call it like swinging for the fence, kind of like, something, whatever.
Shiny object syndrome.
Shiny object syndrome.
We get that as entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was swinging for the fences. I was like, I'm going to make so much money with this other thing that it won't matter.
If I sell these properties, I'm going to get the capital that I need to go and crush it so hard.
I won't even need my real estate retire because I'll have so much money that, I won't need anything. I won't need a job and I won't need real estate. I'll need like a big enough boat with a big enough safe to put all my cash in.
You'll need enough servants to rub your feet and feed your grapes.
One of those things. One of those things for sure. So anyways, I deviated from my plan, Kev. And, the thing that I was doing, it didn't work out the way that I thought. And here we are now about 10 years later. So I've now owned this one fourplex for an additional 8 years because I sold the other 2 when I'd owned them for about 12 years. And do you know how much I sold those 2 fourplexes for?
No.
12 years after I bought them.
So you bought them for $240, right?
Sold them for about $330.
Okay. Hey, you made a profit.
Yeah. Almost $100,000.
Yeah.
You'd think that, hey, that's pretty awesome,
sure.
right? But do you know how much, like 8 years later now, the one remaining fourplex that I have is worth almost $1 million.
Jeez.
Almost $1 million.
Insane.
And Kev, like I'm only a few years away from having it paid off.
Yeah.
And so this thing is a cash cow. Like it cash flows like crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm super grateful that I still have it. But had I kept those other 2 properties and executed my plan in a couple of years, that all 3 of them would be paid off. Those 3 properties alone right now generate $4,000 per building per month. So that would have been a $12,000 a month cash flow to me, minus a few expenses, that kind of a thing, but pretty minimal. These things have very few expenses. They're kind of bulletproof.
Yeah.
And so I think about that. And I think that deviation. And Kev, like I've shared this story with you before, and I've kicked myself over and over and over again, for having done that. Now, having said that, I know the individuals who did buy them, and they're close friends of mine, actually. And so the silver lining is, two of my good friends own those properties. And so we get to hang out once a month when we, collect rent and that kind of a thing.
That's cool.
And so it was a massive opportunity for them. And so from that standpoint, worked out. But I deviated from my plan. A big part of my retirement plan way back in 2005 was to, own these properties forever. I deviated from that. And, it's been a really important lesson to me. And the cool thing is I've been able to translate and share that story with my own children when they've contemplated selling their investment properties in order to pay off student debt or whatever other thing that they have. And I've been like, no, let me share a story with you. Yeah. Here's why you want to stick to your plan. Like the properties that you have, they are gold. They will be gold times 5, when you're really ready to start creating cash flow from them.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to do that with my own children, and of course with our clients, and hopefully lots of people hear this story, and I keep somebody from jumping off the ledge.
You're like old man real estate. Like your kids have a question, you're like, let me tell you about a time when I sold my fourplexes.
Is that what I sound like now? Man.
So really, here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that the failure came there. I heard two categories of failure. One was deviating from the plan, right? You had a plan. You said, I'm going to step away from the plan because I have shiny object syndrome. The second kind of goes along with that shiny object syndrome, which is you were trying to swing for the fences. And so my biggest failure also has to do with attempting to swing for the fences and missing royally. So I had a buddy of mine that was doing a bunch of real estate that came to me. This was like 2009 probably, because it was after the crash, right? So if you think about what happened during the great mortgage crisis, that mortgage crash, and property values went tanking, and there was like crazy foreclosures all over the place. These banks were going and repossessing large bunches of homes, and then they were trying to like resell those to investors. Well, I had a buddy that had an inn, and he said, Kev, we can go and buy 20 homes scattered across a state that I'd never really been to, 20 homes for $150,000. 20 single family residences.
That's crazy.
For $150,000. So my mind was, that's impossible. There's no way we lose. There's no way. Because, now look, one of the failures for me with this deal was swinging for the fences, thinking, oh my gosh, I could go do this deal. And like, what happens if over the next 10 years, I can sell each of them for $150,000 or whatever, right? I'm 10xing my money. Like I'm a millionaire from one real estate deal, right? Whatever it was. That was one big failure as I was swinging for the fences. The other big failure that led to the demise was I didn't do the thing that we have literally 5 layers of vetting that we do on our properties for our clients, right? There's 5 layers of vetting these properties go through. I went through none. I did, like, literally this was what happened. My buddy said, look at this. This is amazing. 20 properties, $150K. I go, oh, I'm a smart investor, man. So show me the addresses. So he shows me the addresses on some sort of a spreadsheet that says, this is what they used to be worth before the crash. Here's what we can buy them for today. And it was literally like 15 grand a home, right? Or like somewhere, the highest were 15. I think there was one that was like 20 grand for the home. Some of them were 15. Some of them were like 7-8 grand, right? It was kind of scattered. And I was looking at it like, oh, dude, okay. So if the spreadsheet says that this is what they were worth and I could buy them for this, then worst case scenario, I could turn around and sell them in a year or 2 years and at least make my money back. How do we lose on this? I did no other vetting. I did no other due diligence. I didn't contact anybody on the ground to go and take a look at the properties. I just took this group that was packaging these REOs and this guy who I'd known that had done a bunch of real estate. I just took them at their word and thought, this ought to work wonderfully. So we send the wire and now I own the homes. And now it's kind of like, oh, now what? Now here's another failure. There was no strategy. I had no strategy. The strategy was you could buy something cheap and I'm sure it'll work out. So I was chasing shiny object home run syndrome, right? I did not do any sort of due diligence or vetting whatsoever. And I did not have any sort of a plan of how I would create success from these things, right? One of the principles in our book, Micro Wins to Millions, is you always start where you are, right? Now, I was where I was, but I had no idea what to do next. There was no next steps that I had in my mind. I was only focused on the end goal. The whole concept of Micro Wins to Millions, everything that we put in the book is like, the end goal is fine, you'll get there. But what you have to do is you kind of have to back out of that end goal. And Napoleon Hill talks about this too in Think and Grow Rich. You have to put together sort of specific defined steps of like, what's my next step and how is that going to lead to something? And I didn't do that at all. So home run syndrome, I did not vet and I did not have any sort of clear path. Now, what's interesting is today, what we do at DFY is we create a game plan. We do multiple layers of vetting and our focus is not on hitting homers. It's on swinging for singles. And what's interesting is that $150,000 investment that there's no way, dude, there was at least one property that wasn't even a real property. But I didn't vet it, right? I didn't know. I didn't even get on Zillow to like look it up. I just took people at their word. I was trusting, right? And so that was so stupid of me. Of that $150,000 that we invested, I got nothing back. In fact, it got to the point where I just had to offload these things because I was starting to get, stuff from cities or principalities,
tax bills, violations,
violations. There was this thing that I had to do and this thing, and I was like, holy cow! I didn't even think about how much money it was going to cost to fix these up, how much money it would cost to sort of, pay the taxes. I literally thought through nothing. All I saw was money in, potential money out, and I connected no dots. And so we ended up having to like pay somebody to take these off our hands, like just for them locally there to do something with it, right? It's like, so I still lost money on the $150,000 that was going to make all this money. I still lost money, but was able to eventually just sort of eradicate the portfolio so I didn't have to worry about it. So, what's interesting about this, Steve, is we look at kind of the story that you just shared and we have other stories that we could share, but those are just the biggest ones.
Well, I do have to say this, Kev, like hearing your story actually makes me feel better about my story.
Because you still kind of made money.
I still kind of made almost $200,000. So yeah,
I literally just lost it all.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah, it's great. It was. I'll tell you what, though. It was one of those things where when it was all said and done, the individual that had kind of got me into the deal, it took me. I will tell you, full transparency, it took me a while to forgive that person. And I had to, because it was just eating me up, that I felt like I had been so mistreated and so, there was no liability borne by this guy, but we took it all. And man, it took me a long time to kind of get over that. But then once I got over it, I went, what a remarkable lesson. What an incredible lesson of what not to do. And sometimes the best way to learn something is to learn what not to do. I think about that with kids a lot. It's like I could tell my kids, hey, so I'll give you an example, okay? This is not real estate related. This is human related. My daughter, who's 15, we've kind of, said, look, you probably don't need a boyfriend. You're 15, it's like, but she really wanted a boyfriend because her other friends had a boyfriend. And so she kind of picked the first guy that was like, interested. And so now that you can just go get one? Yeah, you just go get one. Yeah. It's like a vending machine. It's great. Cool. Yeah. So she's in this, stupid little juvenile relationship with this guy. And he ends up being a total jerk. And she ends up being really hurt. And I told her afterwards, I was like, babe, I kind of warned you that this probably wasn't going to end well. However, you had to learn it yourself. And what's crazy is she is so much more aware and emotionally intelligent now when she looks at the potential of relationships in the future. And she would not have had that experience had she not experienced the failure and not experienced the negative. I don't know why it is that as humans, we are so thick-headed that when somebody comes to us and says, I've been there, I've done that, I've had this failure, I've had this success, here are the steps to avoid failure and to create success, we still as humans look at that and go, nah, I think that's only applicable to you and not to me. And we go in an entirely different direction. And my hope is that, if you guys are listening to this, my hope is that I know that we are all chasing some aspect of real estate wealth. And I know it is so attractive when a good deal comes along. This is why, Steve, we don't even talk about good deals at DFY Real Estate, right? What do we call them?
Purchase-worthy properties.
Purchase-worthy properties, because even the nomenclature of good deal makes us go, oh, well, let me evaluate this in a totally illogical way. Let me be completely emotional. One of the things we talk about in the book too is like different types of investors. The emotional investor will either invest or refuse to invest purely based out of emotion and not from a logical standpoint at all. It's funny. We are guided by emotion and logic, but when we totally shut off logic and we only focus on emotion, we largely will make bad decisions. There has to be a balance of the two. When I look at what, there's, I don't know how you feel about your fourplexes. Mike, I don't know if you feel like emotion was more the deciding factor or if you logically went, okay, if I sell these and take this capital and put it here, it's going to 10x. I can tell you for me, it was 100% emotional. I was like, oh, I'm going to own 20 homes. That's so cool. I'm so amazing. It was a pure emotional buy that was a pure emotional and financial fail.
Yeah. No, as I look back on that particular, example, I think it was pretty similar. Like it was kind of a 100% emotional scenario because from a logical standpoint, like I had this set, I had this plan, I'd made the decision. And when I deviated from that, like all logic was thrown out the window. That's what was required in order to make this decision. And so I think you're right. And so, one other element to, working with someone to help you execute your plan is that, you get to go back to somebody and run your ideas past them. And because I think of that to myself, it's like, I didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
If I would have just talked to one person around here, if I would have sat down with you or with anybody who was around at the time, you would have looked at me and been like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
and you would have done the same for me.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so that is one of the ways that you can stay on track. It's one of the ways that you can, make better decisions is to have, your personal coach or your inner circle of individuals who you go to when you're looking at making kind of important decisions, whether they're financial or otherwise, right?
Yeah.
To go and bounce those ideas off. And as you do that, sometimes that logic comes back and you think about it a second time. And who knows, maybe I would have made the same decision again. Maybe I would have said, Kev, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to the moon, baby.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's just, that happens as well, sometimes. So I think one of the important things is that, you don't dwell on that failure. You don't beat yourself up over it. Like what you did is as quickly as you were able, you reconciled the situation and moved forward. And it's like,
and then resolved
that's
to
our
never
opportunity.
Do that again.
Yeah. It's our opportunities to learn.
Yeah.
And so that's also, I suppose, one of the other lessons that we can just take away from this particular podcast is that, in real estate, there's always another opportunity. And in real estate, it's about time. So if you still have time, you can still, you can recover. It may take years.
Yeah.
And it may derail you, to a large extent.
Sure.
I look at my scenario, like that's a significant amount that I've had to overcome, but I've done some things in order to like mitigate that.
Yeah.
And such a critical, lesson that I've been able to impart to, probably hundreds of other people, and hopefully it's benefited them.
Well, and it brings up to the thought of opportunity cost. And I think that a lot of times we talk about opportunity cost in terms of if I don't go and do this thing, right, there's a cost to inaction. Sometimes there's also a cost to action, right? Yeah. There's a literal cost to taking an opportunity. And there's other times when it is a massive cost to not take an opportunity. And that comes back to what you just shared. This is my third Napoleon Hill name drop. Can you tell what book I'm re-engaging as of recent?
Love it.
I'm going through Think and Grow Rich again, which is such a great book.
Such a great book.
So I've got Napoleon Hill's ideas in my brain every morning when I'm at the gym. He talks about the principle of masterminds.
this is Napoleon Hill, not Napoleon Dynamite, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
They are a little different.
Because I know that they're both heroes to you.
Yes, they are both heroes to me, and they are both filled with wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, but
All
it's
so
Napoleon Hill.
Got
the Think and Grow Rich guy. Not the Vote for Pedro guy. And so he talks about the principle of mastermind and the idea that a real, like, there's a lot of people that sell the idea of a mastermind that's not really a mastermind. It's just kind of like a high ticket like experience to go and be around people. The real idea of a mastermind is actually getting together with people and allowing your ideas to kind of grow into mega ideas, right? And so you and I, like, we get to mastermind together all of the time, right? 2 heads are better than one. You've kind of heard that phrase. And I was talking to Adam York this morning, who's our amazing coach here at DFY. And he's speaking at a local real estate investors thing tonight. And one of the things he's going to be talking about, he loves this book called The Road Less Stupid. I've not read it yet. It's on my list. But he said that, he's done these really emotional things where he's tried to go and grab just a bunch of assets, and he's had massive heartache as a result, and is kind of reconfigured the way that he's approaching his real estate portfolio. And one of the things he's going to share tonight is that you have to have people that can help you make the right kinds of decisions, because you as an independent actor are likely going to fall too hard on logic, too hard on emotion, too hard on fear, and you may not always make the right decision. And so having somebody that you can consult with, that you can talk to, that you can bounce ideas off of is massive. I didn't have that really when I went through my failure. You were kind of a lone actor as you went through the failure that you described today. I think that we've fixed that in a lot of ways, both as we work together, and we hope here at Done For You Real Estate that if anybody, whether you are doing real estate with us or not, if you're just considering real estate, that's why we do these game plan calls. That's why we do the intensives. That's why we try to make ourselves accessible, because you have to have somebody to bounce ideas off of to help you ultimately determine, am I choosing the right path, right? Don't do what I did. Don't avoid vetting. Don't do due diligence. Don't not do due diligence. Don't swing for the fences. Don't do what Steve did, where he had, swing for the fences mentality and maybe was emotional in the approach. We want you guys to take a logic, but also a logic-based approach that does have a good degree of excitement about the things that you're doing, right? It can't just be numbers. There's got to be some more to it than that. And that's really what we're here to provide, is to kind of counsel with you and help however we can. Anything else you want to share before we conclude that?
No, I think we hit that pretty good.
Awesome, cool. All right, everybody. Hope that was fun. If you like it, go review the podcast and tell us that you want more stories of how Steve and I suck, because we love. I've got a lot. I have so many. So, all right, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you real soon.